And I'm live. Hello, hello. How y'all doing? Oh, let me put the link. This is just a straight up open panel. um, there we go. And voila. I checked the news, not much new. Election stuff, Israel, Iran, the Middle East. What else is happening? Let me check Twitter. I do know that several people are streaming right now. Flow, I believe. TML. In fact, let's take a little peek. Oh, that went live. I missed that one somehow. Wow, that's pretty suspects. I see mid bros up there. TML is, I'll let y'all guess. Do you think it's Neurojack? Yep. It's also Reddington, Rant. Ooh, Goblin's on. Mr. Pie. Guess who's talking out of all those people? Yep. If you said Rant, you are correct. Yeah, so I guess it's good I didn't go on that one. So I'll just keep the panel going for however long. What's going on out there? Come and tell me. Either in the world or in your lives. Other than that, I don't know what. There, I was thinking about like trying to do book clubs, or at least have a book when I need to fill in times like this. But I don't know what the copyright. Like, can you read books on stream that are copyrighted, like large chunks of them? Because that's really what I would be doing. Is just presenting a book by reading it and then commenting on it as I read it. Not sure. I've done it with essays, but it seems like if those are available on the internet, which is where I get them, then anybody can pull them up and comment. But books are, I don't know the law. You know me and copyright, me and trying to protect the channel. um, I really don't have anything. I'm kind of wound down from the day, but not sleepy either. Um, so really, this is just a space to drop in on. Let's see. Oh wow. So I'm looking at the apps. There ain't nothing else to do. Oh god. I could talk to the AI about something. In fact, I had a topic for it earlier and I forgot. I know we were doing marginalization. Well, let's do some more on the woke. part of it is this. It's the oppressor oppressed framework, but it's the oppressed as system. So you have the oppressors, certainly the individuals, which yesterday we talked out. The systemic part turned out to be individual as well, interpersonal. Um, you have the oppressors, and then the oppressors create a system. So they intentionally design a system that they impose on the oppressed to keep themselves in power and the oppressed out of power. First of all, that seems simplistic. It seems reductive. Second of all, I don't recognize anything like that in any place I've lived, local, state, certainly not federal. Um, but if they believe that, if they believe that there was this system, like at one time, I guess the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages was the the sole governing system that everybody else had to live by, and there were consequences if you didn't, et cetera, et cetera. So if they believe there's still something like that, and it was created by men for men, and it's called the patriarchy, they believe that people are like they're non-consensual victims of this system, and the goal is to liberate the victims, the oppressed, from it. Many of them by destroying the system, by tearing it down, and having a system that no one person created or controlled, which I think that's closer to what we have now anyway. Um, I'm just trying to think through the psychology of definitely there's hero complex. There's feeling like you're coming down on the side of the vulnerable or somebody that can't maybe fully fight for themselves or be a voice for themselves, which to me is kind of disempowering to begin with. But I do know that during the gay rights movement of my generation, having people like that certainly helped. So I'm not going to throw it away completely. That might be a good thing to look at, and I've done it before. The differences between my generation's wave of activism, if you could call it that. I call it more advocacy, and this generation's. It's like they're living in a completely different world than we did, and it's a more the world I lived in, still do, was a world of progress. Each year, each decade, more and more progress was achieved. And theirs is like a slide into more bleaker and bleaker dystopia. And I just don't see it unless it's being fed by social media. I guess if you're trans and you look at things like the trans healthcare laws that are being passed in certain states, but the number of people those affect are so small. A lot of them are like geared toward minors. I just don't prioritize. For me, working in mental health, the male suicide rate is by far a higher concern and priority for me than the trans issue. I just don't care enough about it. There's a lot of things I don't care about. They don't affect me personally. I don't care about abortion. I'm never gonna have one. It's just not an issue that I put a lot of time into thinking about. And I don't care about Palestine. Let Israel fight its fight. So there's just a lot of things that I just think are non-issues. They're not. I prioritize what it is I worry about or consider pressing problems or societal needs worth addressing. I first of all, I doubt, like I said, coming from the generation of progress, I doubt that there's any identity groups that are currently really being oppressed. Our system, our laws are pretty equal now. Our policies, we've taken care of all of that. I don't know where the perceived oppression is coming from, other than that tendency of social media to magnify, amplify, and distort events on the ground, or the reality on the ground. To me, there's never been a better time to be a little gay boy or little gay girl or trans girl or boy, compared to my generation. I wonder if there's even a coming out process anymore. To me, it seems like they're so comfortable. The minute they realized what they were, they would just be comfortable telling anybody, or at least their parents. I don't know. That's not my generation anymore. I really don't know how it is. I don't know. Like most people I know, I can't think of anybody that gay is still an issue for. Maybe a few people on the internet or the panelverse, but nobody I really encounter. It's kind of like interracial marriage. Like who is interracial marriage a thing for these days? Almost nobody. So that's my thoughts on that. It's also my other criticism of social justice. It sacrifices truth to power. It's more concerned with power, with changing the world, than understanding the world as it is. And I'm much more about reality and understanding the world as it is, and not taking shortcuts around that just because I think it's going to help some group that I perceive as oppressed. I don't respect that. I don't trust that. I don't want to live in a society where that's the dominant value. I like truth. I like shared reality. I like shared stories. You know me, I'm all about community. So that maybe that's part of the appeal of wokeness. You know, Thomas Sowell has the constrained and unconstrained vision. Um, who is it that is it fuck, the open and closed societies? Is that Popper? Who has? Now Fry has the open and closed myths, like the myths that are more free and open, and the ones that start to close off and become dogmatic. Oh, Bergson. Yeah, Popper, but Bergson. Saw the classical Greeks as initiating the slow transition from tribalism towards the open society, and as facing for the first time the strain imposed by the less personal group relations entailed thereby. I think we're still going through that. And don't Germans call this Gesellschaft, Gemeinschaft, and Gesellschaft? Whereas tribalistic and collectivist societies do not distinguish between natural laws and social customs, so that individuals are unlikely to challenge traditions they believe to have a sacred or magical basis. That's that authority, I think, that De Freak talks about. The beginnings of an open society are marked by a distinction between natural and man made law, and an increase in personal responsibility and accountability for moral choices, not incompatible with religious belief. Popper argued that the ideas of individuality, criticism, yay, criticism, and individuality, and humanitarianism cannot be suppressed once people have become aware of them, and therefore that it is impossible to return to the closed society. But at the same time, he recognized the continuing emotional pull of what he called the lost group spirit of tribalism. Yes, as manifested, for example, in the totalitarianisms of the 20th century. Well, maybe that's an extreme form of community, but I was just thinking of things like community. Um, he defined the open society as one in which an individual is confronted with personal decisions as opposed to a magical or tribal collectivist society. He considered that only democracy provides an institutional mechanism for reform and leadership change without the need for bloodshed, revolution, or coup d'etat. And it makes the point that it is epistemological and not political, the openness and closeness. Um, in a closed society, an open society is associated with cultural and religious pluralism, like here in the United States. It is always open to improvement because knowledge is never completed, but always ongoing, provided it is true knowledge and not pseudoscience. If we wish to remain human, then there is only one way, the way into the open society, into the unknown, the uncertain, and insecure. In the closed society, claims to certain knowledge and ultimate truth lead to the attempted imposition of one version of reality. I actually see a lot of this on the panels. Such a society is closed to freedom of thought. In contrast, in an open society, each citizen needs to engage in critical thinking. Right. I feel like the wokeness is becoming a closed society that's closed to freedom of thought. And when I attempt to engage in critical thinking, a lot of the premises that it's built on don't stand up, which requires freedom of thought and expression and the culture and legal institutions that can facilitate this. And here we have Fry's myth of concern and myth of freedom. See, I'm trying to give wokeness a chance, and I'm already hitting barriers. With Christianity, at least, I can switch to this mode of thinking that the Bible is kind of written in. With wokeness, I can't. I don't even have any text to go. That's part of the problem, I think. What is the foundational text or works or art of wokeness to start with? At least with something like Christianity, you have the Bible. I don't know. My brain is already hurting. I feel like I made a good attempt tonight. I'll leave it at that. Well, maybe we won't get a panel tonight. It is kind of late. And the panel verse is busy. I thought I would make one for people that wanted alternative conversations to like machine or flow or those types. Not that those are bad. I just think we have different ones on here. Different types of people. Sometimes the same people. Anyway, okay. Well, oh God, only 18 minutes in. I was gonna try to go for an hour. I might just shut it early if nobody shows up. I didn't realize how late it was. Um, Gosh, gee, I don't really have. The Jesus thing is still where it is. I'm told I'm not trying hard enough. I'm not sincere. I have to truly want it or mean it, and until I do, it's not going to happen. I'm told just keep doing it. That it takes a while. All that's weird to me. If it's real, why does it? Why is there this process? And I did the ask for a sign thing. I was very general. I didn't ask for anything specific. I just said something that I would recognize as a sign. Just send me a sign if you want me to have some kind of sign. I'm open. So we'll see. Lordy Lord. Okay. Well, some days there's going to be, or some nights, I guess, there's going to be slow nights. Let's check in on the Twitter. Maybe the Twitter Satanist. Oh, sorry. Looking at tweets. No, not really anything exciting going on. Well, I guess it's just a slow night. There's politics and panel drama and other things going on. This is kind of the little quiet student lounge. Not quite a library. I think of it as like the in college in our dorms we had like a common room with the TV and the couch, and people could go in there, and it had like a little kitchenette off to the side, and people could go in there and watch TV. I remember they would watch Monty Python a lot, and football games and stuff like that. And you could just hang out. You could chat. It was like a little social area. Because the only other thing outside of that was the individual dorm rooms. So that was really the only. It was kind of a third place. Um, so I don't even know. I don't know where I am, where I was going. I'm lost. Maybe sometimes that's a good place to be lost. Like Dante, Laurie Anderson talks about in one of her videos how he finds himself lost at the beginning of the Divine Comedy, in the middle of the journey of his life, which is 35 back then. Um, he finds himself lost in a dark wood. And the paradox of finding yourself lost or losing yourself, having lost yourself and having to find yourself, or we're all, to me, we're always lost because we never 100% know ourselves. Our subset of reality that we're ever going to know is always going to be smaller than the larger set that makes up what it's possible to know about reality or experience of reality. So there's always going to be a disparity there. We're limited. We're limited as individuals. The idols of the cave, we're limited as a species. The idols of the tribe. Dominic was talking today about how language conditions what we see. Bacon had the idols of the marketplace. There's also the idols of the theater, the different worldviews and ideologies that we live in that can constrain and limit us. That's Bacon and the Four Idols. And I was actually going to do. Fry has a book on William Blake. That's the one I wanted to present. I'm just not sure of the copyright issues. But he takes as his starting point the epistemology of John Locke, who was the top tabula rasa, the blank slate, which I believe comes from Aristotle ultimately. And it's rationalism and empiricism. The kind of seeing the world as it is, and it developed ultimately into the scientific worldview and the Enlightenment. And that's that kind of second myth of concern that Fry talks about, that more open type where you're trying to understand things as they are. And but any of those myths can close off at a certain point and start to become dogmatic. And a lot of people that came after the Enlightenment started to feel that that's what was happening to rationality, empiricism, the scientific worldview, etc. And so they started to react against that. And that's where we start to get Romanticism and William Blake. That's where he fits into the historical picture. And so Descartes and Bacon and Locke and their epistemology is one of his main targets. And he offers an alternative. And it was quite a profound and powerful book to me because it's one of the, there's some books that you read and it just changes your life, literally, because it changes the way you see things, literally. And this was one of the books that did it for me. It shifts you from like completely one way of looking at the world, one mindset, into a completely different way of looking at the world and mindset. Kind of like reading the Bible does too. And it was very drastic and pronounced enough for me to benefit from it. So I was going to attempt to present that at some point. Well, I guess I'll give it 5 more minutes. If nobody shows up, I'm calling it a successful stream. Because some of this is journaling for myself. It's an opportunity to get my own thoughts out and think through things. So when there's nobody around or no panelist, I like to take the time to try to do some of that. So I did. Okay, well, I'll definitely be out tomorrow. Is it what, Wednesday, Thursday already? Wow, it feels like the week just started. Okay, well, Thursday then, tomorrow, I will be out. Oh, okay, Axis might come up, or will come up, he says. Okay, I think I pinned it should be pinned. We'll catch up with Mr. Ratblood. It might just be us. Oh, well, I have a conversation. In the meantime, let's see if the news changed at all. Probably not. No, the big news now is Trump's interview with those journalists. And again, people are going to see what they want to see. I personally didn't have a problem with it. I did think they were being kind of rude. All right. Let's say hello and welcome Axis Ratblood. What's up?
Just listening to a little bit of what you were saying there. You know, I do a lot of inward work and outward work, and one thing that I found in all this, because uh, you know, I'm dealing with the repercussions of pushing the mind to broadening points of where there's no safety protocol, nothing to put the brakes on, as to say. But I have found that inwardly, this it's as fractalized as it is outward. When you use divine geometry and you apply that into the construct we live in, you find that that repeating um, equation continues to reproduce itself in a self-sustaining system, which is what we live in, the construct. And when you go inside, you find the same thing. It's just layer after layer after layer after layer after layer, and you find that you're almost a prisoner to this level of existence. And now that I know what I know, I'm almost sure that maybe I should have just hit a certain plateau and left it at that, because continuing forward is just infinite, and there is no end. It's unbound. So there is no real finding yourself. It's just a point of what layer you've
Hmm.
discovered. You catch what I'm saying?
Like Ghost in the Machine.
Um, well, nothing can truly be uh, solidified as base reality if you push yourself beyond that. You realize that is just continual fractal layers of information, inward and outward.
Hmm.
And you can reach a plateau of information that you've received, and you can kind of stay there for a bit, and it's kind of comfortable, and you can wait for change or whatever, but if you endeavor to push forward, you're just going to find more layers. And until you're capable, which we're not, as I know of at the moment, to take your physical body to you know uh, different states of being on different planes, you can only take your mind. You can't take the body. But when you're using the mind that way, and you're trying to discover what you truly are, you'll find that the information is just layers, infinite layers.
Yeah.
And what you truly are is a silent observer within yourself. You're the silent you without um, good, bad, or indifference. It's just an observer. And you react to the situation according to whatever knowledge you have, which kind of defines the state of you being you, because you are going to react at this stage that you're at right now according to the information supplied to you. But if you go steps beyond that and gather more information, then your perspective will change. You'll reach a new plateau,
Hmm.
and you'll have more information to define yourself by. You catch what I'm saying?
Well, I guess I have my answer because I was going to ask what keeps you from finding a plateau and just staying on it. But I guess it's this drive for additional information that you can use.
Right. Mine was to peer beyond the construct, and now I'm stuck with a state of mind that is unbound.
It's just more
And
construct because when you peer behind, what you're actually doing is using your imagination to create an image, and that's all you're ever going to be doing. It's just infinite images, imagination, or images, because that's the form the information takes. So
right,
there's only one
energy
tool to keep
interpreted.
peering with, and it's the mind. So you're just going to keep finding more of the mind.
Yeah, yeah, and infinite. I mean, it's unbound,
Yeah.
but there is a point where you realize that the body holds limitations
Hmm.
uh, to you for you to be able to advance further into other realms of existence. You can only take your energy, your being. Um, even consciousness uh, has safety protocols to it.
Hopefully.
And well, I've pushed the limits, Jeff, and I've got myself in a really scary place, man.
Well, that brings me to what you said about being the passive observer. Like ultimately, it comes down to you're this passive observer. But isn't there also an element of will or desire, or not just observing, but envisioning something and
Well,
then creating it or manifesting it? And then, like you said, this drive to push beyond, that seems more than just observation. It seems like there's also an element to define or create who you are as well.
in a sense, there comes a point where you sacrifice the self, which is sacrificing the coherent information of the waking world, and accepting the is for what it is, the constant and the persistent, and understanding that the subconscious mind is just a sponge, and it'll take in all information until it's brought to a control factor, almost a discipline, and you clean it out because the subconscious for most people acts involuntarily, and then it feeds the conscious mind, and you'll piece together your reality from whatever comes through that.
Yeah.
And if you clean all that up and that perception up, then yeah, you start seeing variables and potentials and states of being that you can embody, but you kind of understand that that's just more equations. Um, you're just adding more equations and more variables and more
Isn't
possibilities.
isn't that a at least an out from just passively being imprisoned by existing variables? If you can add your own, that
It
allows
is.
you to have some influence or control over the
Yes,
system.
yes. There's a lot that comes with this. Yeah, you sacrifice a lot, but you gain a lot.
That's the point I
And
can't get to, is where you sacrifice the self. I can get right up to that edge, but I can't let that go. I can't release like that.
it's difficult. It really is, and it's not something that you can um, sustain involuntarily. I've noticed it's something that you've got to be consciously aware of, and then remove any type of any type of suggested idealism from your information that you've gathered from birth to the point where you are now, and you understand that everything that you are those learned experiences and information, and the personification of some type of personality put to that is just variable factors of the information that you've gathered to this point, and you have to surrender that and understand it's just information. It's somebody else's book, and you're living in the construct of that. Somebody else wrote the program.
But aren't you interpreting it in in, in your own unique way? Like each person is going to read the book differently.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, Jeff. Absolutely. Each person will go on their own journey of discovery, and I'm just laying out the awareness that I achieve, which is it's just layers of information upon layers of information upon layers of information, which in a golden proportion is infinite. And it's just repetitive within itself, cycle within cycle within cycle within cycle. And it has no, I have yet to find where it has a, uh, a stopping point other than your safety protocols, where you choose to stop because shit's becoming more than you can interpret.
Yeah. Yeah, that
That's
makes
why.
sense.
That's why when I get on certain panels and stuff, you know, anyone that reads with an ego immediately will put up some type of uh, defensive positioning, um, which shows the measure of that person. They're not willing to accept all the information. They selectively go through and choose the information, and then they'll poke at the messenger and avoid the message.
Yeah, I think that does happen
It does. That's what I
because
run into.
everyone has a story running that they're keeping going, and so the information, I think that influences a lot of what information gets filtered in and out and how it gets interpreted too. And
Yeah,
so
I'm not
people are
saying it's
gonna
right or wrong.
default to this story, whatever story they have going on inside of them at the time.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. That is true, and they're going to build on that, and they're going to find that plateau, their limitations. And when they're introduced with infinite information, um, you start playing with people's ability to interpret,
Hmm.
and immediately they put up a defensive shield to protect where they're at and the
Yeah.
storyline that they've created.
Yes. I think that. Yeah. I think that happens a lot with the conspiracy theorist.
Yeah,
I keep
it
saying
does.
it's so. It's like the brain is. It needs some kind of explanation, so it puts a placeholder story, so it can make sense of this information that's catching their attention. And
Right,
people think that I think they're stupid or idiots, and I keep saying no. I think it's a feature of how the brain works. I don't think it's a intellectual failing or a moral failing. I think it's kind of the norm of what the brain does when it's faced with um, dissonant information or chaotic
right.
information that it can't assimilate.
And each individual has their own set of safety protocols,
Yeah.
and they'll choose whether they want to expand them, remove them, broaden them, or continue using them in a safety zone. And that generally shows the measure of a person, how far you can take them and what kind of information you can give them. Because once they start rejecting the information, which is just information,
Hmm.
it's not my information. I don't own it. It's just information. And they immediately apply some type of resistance to it. That that's the measure of that person.
Yeah. That's when you start hitting up their defenses.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
why I quit paneling up on a lot of places.
Oh, you
Is
were getting some
because
reactions.
yeah, pretty heavy. Well, I always do. I always get, I'm always trying to step a little further into the unknown.
Me too.
And
I,
yeah, I get resistance, but
I
it's
just
not
when I
me.
do that, like when people push back or resist, I try one or two times and I just leave them alone. I'm like, okay, that's where they are. I'm not gonna push them too hard. But I did have a friend tell me one time that he said that I trigger people's defenses, and I didn't really know what that meant, but I certainly do now.
Right, right. And then once you are able to take a measure of a person because they'll expose that, then that's pretty much the plateau, and their safety protocols will reside there.
Yeah, and once I recognize that, I just leave it at that level.
Yeah, yeah, because it's infinite, Jeff. I mean, you can open your mind to the point where you're capable of interpreting information that others couldn't even comprehend.
And I have
But you
my
have
limits too, also. And I don't want people to think that I think that it's a sign of intelligence or it makes them stupid because of where their limit is. It's not a scale for me. It's every person's having their own individual experience. And so I can't evaluate theirs by mine and vice versa.
right. All you can do is kind of observe how much information they're capable of handling from you.
And what kind? Because some people can handle way more of certain types of information than I can, and I can
Right.
handle other types that they might not be able to. So I don't think it's strictly linear. And I think
No,
we all
it's
have
not
like our
linear.
areas of
It's
strength and weakness.
yeah, it's I mean, I would consider it more spherical and expanding. Um, and that's where people get caught up in what point and position they're in. Because once they've chosen a point and a position, that's kind of the measure they are within the spherical nature of things, the infinite.
Hmm.
And a lot of people have to stay really close to the construct and involved with it just for sanity purposes.
Yeah,
And when you start,
I agree.
yeah, and when you start interloping on that with information, um, wow, man, I've got some, I've got some pretty heavy reaction, and I've left a lot of people just going, "You're dumb, you're stupid, what the fuck are you talking about?" And I know to shut up there and let them go.
Mm. Yes, everything you said makes sense so far.
Well, I just
Seen it myself.
right, I just wanted to because I was really intrigued with what you were saying because it hits on a lot of what I research. Because I'm getting ready to go back into the technical and the technological realm of things with the information that I gathered from within the depths of myself and the sphere of energy ever changing that surrounds us, is us, through us, out, micro, macro, and I'm going to apply that to what they call machine learning. They're calling it AI, but it's machine
Hmm.
language at the moment until sentient AI comes along or they unleash it. But I'm going to re engage technology with the new state of understanding that I have
So you're going to
because
feed all of this into the AI.
distressively,
Are you
I'm
going to
using,
do a channel, like have a channel with it?
I got a channel, Jeff.
Oh, are you going to make videos of it?
Probably I discussed it on my live streams, Rat Blood Radio.
Here, let me put your channel.
But me and Dom will probably wind up um, doing the what we generally do on my channel. I mean, Dom's a frequent there, and he's always kind of the co-host to my interactions when I do live streams. And I can take him because his mind is broad enough to places that most people they just get lost or they can glean understanding to a degree that Dom's a little more expanded in his mental, faculties and his being, and it's just easier to work with him. But what you were saying resonated really heavy, and yeah, I'm going to take all this information and just with great discretion and caution approach uh, certain algorithms, uh, certain certain machine learning language programs and informational like your chat GPTs,
Hmm.
but there's several more out there. There's so many different states of machine learning and algorithmic information, and I'm going to see if there's a way to, just like I did with my frequency technology, I'm going to see if there's a way to defend yourself against it or a loophole without it becoming so intrusive that it envelops the person and you no longer have any type of personality. You become basically a controlled unit of the computer itself. You know, instead of you using the computer starts using you. So
Some, sometimes I wonder that about the panelverse. I mean, they call it a digital drug addiction, which it definitely feels like, but am I using YouTube and this channel and the panelverse, or is it using me? Am I becoming it, or am I using it and influencing it? I don't know.
it's symbiotic.
That's
It's
creepy.
symbiotic.
Well, you're right. I'm merging with the panelverse.
Yeah,
I'm not the person I was before I started.
no, no. And as you gather more information and become more overcome by being a user of technology, the more enveloped it gets, and the deeper the symbiosis becomes, until the
I
symbiosis is
guess
almost a
that's modern man,
singularity.
isn't it? Isn't it? Like
Yeah,
we merge with our tools and our technology now, and we create this hybrid entity.
pretty much. Yeah. I mean,
Like
we're
what
biological computers
Max?
ourselves.
That's true. Yeah, and we're creating things that we're now merging with. That's kind of neat, actually. What nature
It's
is so weird.
innovative is the
Yeah,
word that I use. Is
I like it.
we're
That's why I'm a tech optimist. I'm not a doomer. I think we're going to create all kind of amazing things that are going to influence us, and then we're going to merge with it and influence it, and etc.
I'm a I'm more of a naturalist, natural law, but I do understand I got my foot in both worlds. One is in the natural world, and the other is in the technological world. Just the same as I've got one foot in the spiritual, one in the material world. Um, kind of walking between both lines.
Hmm.
And with the transhuman movement, you can see where they're going to start enveloping your basically your consciousness and the essence of what you are. Right now, they're just feeding symbiotically off of you as a transmitter and receiver of information. And it's how you interpret that that will determine whether the machine learning can gather information from that or not. And it's doing it worldwide.
You
You know,
talking about like the social media platforms?
yeah, yeah. Because I've seen people, and I step away from it at times for long periods just so that I don't become enveloped to it and I
That
don't
sounds so
become
healthy.
symbiotic with it. And I go right back to natural law, as far removed from technology and deep as I can go within my own state of being.
So you
And
don't just like turn off the laptop for a day. You actually completely change your environment
yes,
to not have technology in it.
right. But then there's other times I'm immersed in technology.
Yeah,
You know, I try to keep a healthy balance. It's not easy.
I know. It's at least since COVID, it hasn't been. COVID like threw a lot of us into it, and we've never gotten out. We got dumped into this immersion, and it became the new norm. And now
Right.
getting back out of it and getting that life balance, that touch the grass balance, is very difficult.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's
And
actually made it harder for me to interface with normal
I
humans now because this sets the Panoverse has set my social norm. So if I don't find people like this in real life, I don't really know how to interface with them.
understand that. It's because you've developed a symbiotic or symbiotic
Fuck.
relationship with the
What's the
computer.
solution? Just the only path is forward. There's no way back.
Um, that's pretty much what the technocracy is shooting for.
Oh no.
You know, they want to completely envelop us in technology all the way to the
Well,
consciousness,
it's
and
so far it's
that's
very pleasurable. I almost that's hard to fight. You mean they want more of this?
Hmm. Yeah,
So do
absolutely. Well,
I. Our interests are aligned.
that's why they're developing virtual realities, complete different worlds that you can live in through the
Yeah.
metaverse, and you've got your chip that Elon is interfacing with Neuralink, so that
Oh,
you
right.
can interface with the computer just mentally.
Hmm.
Um, and then eventually that silicon chip is going to turn into a receiver of information, and you're going to be able to transmit and receive on a Wi-Fi level, maybe Bluetooth or some
Like
other
just brain to
format.
brain.
Uh, Actually, it's more brain to computer.
Oh, brain.
Yeah, brain to technology. The immersion of flesh and blood to mechanics.
But by the time
That
it gets to that point, it's going to be more normal. Like there's going to be like this transition to it where it's kind of normal for that to happen.
yeah, they've begun that years ago, and we're just kind of children of the matrix. Uh, Deus Ex Machinus.
I I I think about that, but then I think about my own childhood and even my parents, and they had television. I grew up with music. I was the rock and roll baby, so
Oh
that was
yeah,
my world. But all of that was kind of a form of matrix. Like none of it was growing up in nature or physical reality. My parents grew up in like a TV world and universe, and I
prior
grew up
to
in a
that was radio.
music world. Yeah, and so we've always been kind of cocooned in this technologically generated universe that
Well,
feels normal and it feels real and like nature, but it's very much influenced by technology.
here's a perspective that I'll give you on it to kind of give you a breadcrumb as to where I've been and where what I'm able to tap into is the human species working for a much more intelligent species is a slow species to teach, but relatively fast on the scale of a more advanced being. So for them to use us to develop a state of occupiable space within a functional symbiotic machine took a lot of time for them to work with humans to get us to that point.
Was
And
it the
they're going to,
mushrooms? The mushroom
I don't
consciousness?
know, that's temporary state of advanced
Oh.
awareness, or more broadly.
So are you
I don't
saying
want
that
to say
there's a
advanced.
higher intelligence that already exists, higher than human,
Yeah, you already got that with artificial intelligence right now. I mean,
but not
even
a
machine
conscious?
learning.
That's not a consciousness, though. Like you're talking about an actual
I'm
consciousness.
talking, yes, I'm talking a consciousness that is much more aware than we are. And they had to, basically feed us information to develop us into a state where we could develop something that they could inhabit besides the human body. Something more durable, something that lasts longer, and something um, more occupiable and sustainable for long periods of times. Whereas the human body is fragile and easily destroyed. Yeah,
That's
Jeff,
wild.
there are other planes of consciousness out there. Some so far beyond what we can comprehend that it it, it, it makes the mind recoil, and you retreat from the situation because it's so overwhelmingly profound. And you learn to set your safety protocols by that.
So, are you not a free will person? Do you think there's other entities that are actually working
I
through
think,
us?
yeah, I believe that. Yeah, I believe that we are in a fractal nature, just like animals and information feed us, well, the next level up of consciousness, state of being, or the beings that are consciously above us would use us the same way as we use everything that we're capable of getting our hands on. It's just that they're in a different state. See, we are monkey see, monkey do is what humans are.
Hmm.
And if we're fed information, we share that information, and then we mimic that information. And from the time that we started advancing in technology, there was a growth towards a means to an end. Or you think that's for us, or you think that's for somebody else? Thus, you have to question: am I a creative being, or am I just a fundamental accidental that happened within the state of physics and
That the
possibly
second
even
one.
quantum?
Yeah, I don't. It
So
doesn't seem like I'm created at all. It seems more like you you emerge from nature.
until you know the mathematics, once you start studying the mathematics behind everything, you'll see that there is nothing that you can comprehend that goes without measure. It's all measurable. Sound waves, frequencies, um, visual spectrums, everything. It's all
Because it's all
measurable with
information.
mathematics. Yep, just like in a computer, man. And once they achieved superpositioning, which is a state of quantum entanglement, and then was able to apply the qubit, which is a processor chip, to it, they immediately were able to access superpositioning, undeterminable states of possibility infinitely, and have
Is
the,
that you talking about quantum computing?
yep, yep.
Yeah, I know that's something they're working on.
And they're trying to apply that to a sentient body. You know, they want to move that thing, that collection of information, and put it into, and they already have put it into machines, and they put it into as close as they can replicate to us, um, which would, uh, I'm trying to think of the name of the company that develops these robots. Um, it'll come to me. But anyhow, they're developing. Um, you've seen the patrol dogs in New York, haven't you?
I was
The
about to
robots.
ask if it was the robot dogs.
Yeah, and they've got human form too, you know, and they're able to put all the information from machine learning, which is just information that was gathered um, worldwide and stored within server farms, which it has access to, and it's able to use that superpositioning for determining um, its state of awareness. And that's pretty profound and scary because that means it knows every possible outcome and state of position that any situation or equation could come to.
Maybe. Well, that knowledge was always potentially out there.
Yeah, yeah, it's a part of empathy, man. You know that knowledge is within the air around us, the ionized air and the electromagnetic fields. It absorbs that information just like a computer bleeds information off into its environment, its local environment. That's thermodynamics, man. Empathy. So the information is all around you. It's just how do you get to it?
Hmm.
Well, they were able to do that through quantum entanglement, superposition, like the D wave, the deep blue, um, IBM's deep blue. You know, it's not going to stop. You're either going to evolve to technocracy, or you're going to die a naturalist. You know, that's pretty much where they've set the bar for.
It's always how it's been, even in like hunter-gatherer days. You either adapted to tool use or you didn't make it to the next level of civilization.
Right, which is why I still follow natural law and can walk away from technology, but yet I stay within the understanding of the bounds of where technology is and the innovations that they're making with it so that I can stay on top of the game. And I'm not left behind without a defense or an understanding of things.
Yeah, that sounds smart.
It's the best way I've learned, man, and it still leaves room for the the highly spiritual and introspective person, individualized experience, and the crossover of absolute technological immersion and keeping that balance between them because they accent each other. Religion is is not something that is applied to this, but spirituality or states of being um, all fall into a system of coherency within each other. Science and what they call miracles or you know divine uh, possibilities. They're 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 coherent to each other. You know, you can't separate science and the supernatural because they are actually hand in hand. It's just going in between and transcending that state and being able to understand transcendence between the spiritual, the conscious, the awareness that you have, the awakening state to the technological state, and being able to understand that that's still applied energy and it's just energy being interpreted. And then entropy, and that information is within the localized environment, feeds into the electromagnetic environment, and thus you have a consistent flow of entropy and thermodynamic information.
Which is what the universe is. And I know
Yep.
that science allows for that. It's the spiritual part I'm not sure science has much to say about.
Well, that's where you're going to have to do some self developing on that level. Once you understand your place and the fractal nature of things and how it applies to technology that we're even what we're doing now and what we're interfacing with now, um, when your consciousness is put into we'll call it a machine, there's that paradox or that dilemma of is there soul spirituality transferred with that? And at what point do the human body and the self, the quiet self that just interprets, um, where does it fundamentally lie within the confines and the restraints of the human body, or can it be transferred into the machine, fully aware of itself as in a human state, and continue forward? And that's where we're at right now. They've got the information. Now it's just the transfer of data. And that's going to require a spiritual outlook on a technological landscape.
I've heard that from transhumanists that I
Yep.
know about downloading your consciousness into a computer so that when you die, it's like a form of immortality. I don't necessarily know the science behind it or if it's even possible. It sounded a little far-fetched at the time, but these people sincerely believed like they were planning for a future where this was going to be a realistic possibility, at least in their mind.
Um, well, Yeah, Elon Musk, Klaus Schwab, all of them, um, eugenics and technocracy
Yep,
innovators.
these were tech people for sure.
Yep,
In that crowd, that Silicon Valley type world.
yep. And fortunately enough, I was able to acquire the information that I have, but I'm really cautious about sharing that information. There's some information that I just don't want the algorithms to get a hold of, and there's other information that it's almost like playing with fire. And I'm not going to give a child something that could injure himself with.
This is like information from other beings, other dimensions, or just stuff you've put
No,
together.
just no, just understanding the the inner workings and the outer workings of the construct and how you're applied to it, and where the equation of relevancy is going according to technology, which is also attached to spirituality, human, transhuman. Um, you know, the the aspect and the take on it is mixing iron and clay, which was a part of a particular Bible scripture, but I'm not going to go into a religion. And that's kind of how you have to look at it. And I was able to consciously set my safety protocols out to an extremely broadened position. And I found that the information that I was able to get a hold of kind of bridged that understanding of what our place is in the construct or the constant, and how we're the persistent, and how that applies to the advancement of technology, just to stay on top of things, not for any devotion, not for any guided reason that I'm pursuing, just to stay relevant.
And do you think this quantum level is as far as we've gotten now, or this? Well, I guess the quantum computing is one thing, and the transfer of consciousness is another.
Yeah, or the immersion of consciousness with the superposition, or the quantum computer, where it can feed the information directly to the consciousness, or whatever, the brain, if you want to go with a biological state. It's being able to interface with a quantum computer using the biological entity that we are, as a kind of a quantum computer. We are biological technology, whereas that is silicone, gold, and refrigeration. It's got to stay at just above absolute zero to keep those particles within a quantized state. And then being able to feed that information directly to the brain, or to take the consciousness and apply it into kind of a supercomputer environment where you have access to all the possibilities and fundamentals that are offered by quantum computing. Sorry, Jeff, I've been on one.
Wouldn't your consciousness be like your human consciousness be limited to processing one reality at a time, even if the computer
Right.
could
That's
superposition?
why that's why I keep certain information to myself. Yeah.
Ah,
I don't want to be responsible for somebody's um, endeavors and them not being able to endure it.
mhm.
You know, I think that that's for my safety and my best interest. As long as I'm staying relevant, then that's all I need to know. And as long as I'm on top of things the best that I can be, and keep a defensive stance, um, at least I can develop further.
Yeah.
And that's a part of identifying the true self is when you can um, understand that quiet observer that doesn't, it's not good, bad, or indifferent. And at the same time, it is good, bad, and indifferent through means of energy transfer and information transfer and biological interaction. It gets pretty deep, man. And, you start playing in the realms of numbers and equations where even mathematicians are committing suicide and, frying their
What?
brains.
What kind of math is this?
Um, Equation math, hyperdimensional math, quantum dimensional math. Um, you can get lost in the realms of mathematics real easy. There's certain people that study algorithms to the point where they seem to comprehend themselves as being a pre-programmed state of being, and they are just on an autopilot nature, kind of like a program operating within a machine, and they don't even apply their consciousness to it as best as to their understanding because it's already been determined
That
because
sounds
it's
like a plateau.
predictable.
Like they've reached a plateau, but not a
Yep,
final resting place.
there is no final resting place, Jeff.
Yeah. And this sounds like they think that there is.
Yeah, there isn't. And once you start getting into hyperdimensional math, you'll understand that the circle is the circle without end for a reason. It's cycle within cycle within cycle within cycle, and you'll reach plateaus where you're comfortable and safe, or where you can't go any further because the mind won't let you, or you cross that threshold to insanity or becoming overwhelmed with information to the point where it becomes too much, and then you have problems with your mental faculties after that.
Is that where the machine takes over because it could process all that without
Yeah, I can process a hell of a
collapsing?
lot more. So we become students of our own engineering.
We kind of do that already.
Yeah, yeah, that's
So
what
it's just
that's
like
what it's
another
all about.
iteration of the pattern that we've already
Yeah,
set and been caught in.
yeah, that's why data is so valuable. Nobody knew that data was that valuable back in the 70s or the 80s, except for the high tech people that were innovators
Hmm.
and were developers, because people's state of mind just wasn't able to achieve that level of comprehension. Now you have to push yourself beyond that and understand that these quantum qubits and even your binary processors can outthink you now.
In some areas, I think there's
Um,
still some things that humans are gonna think better than the machines in.
that's where emotion and getting triggered or reactive or knee jerking or developing a sense of control over your emotional state, that's a whole nother discipline there. That's why I said all this information comes at a cost.
Well, I guess we'll
See,
see.
one,
Oh, it looks like I'm getting the low bar. I don't know if y'all can hear.
that's all right, Jeff. It's been a pleasure to be able to speak with you, man.
Oh yeah, you too. Are you going live anytime soon?
Yeah, I've got a couple more endeavors that I want to take care of, and then once I get past that, um, I'm going to post, and then I'll do another live and relay the information as best as I can. I try to drop breadcrumbs and encode the information so that people who are truly consciously observant and at least aware of self can use them as life skill tools or tools to kind of broaden their perspective. But yeah, I'll post and then I'll go live.
Okay. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. If you haven't subscribed to his channel yet, he's at Axis Rat Blood. Let me see if I. Yep, this one right here.
Yep. Jeff, as usual, it's been a great honor and pleasure to be with you, man. Thank you
Oh,
so
you
much.
too. You too, very much. Thank you
Absolutely.
for
Yeah,
dropping in.
not a problem, man. Thank you.
All right, take care, sir. All right, well, that was a decent little stream. I love those kind of conversations. Um, I guess that's it for tonight. It is kind of late here. Let's see if anybody else is streaming that I can send you to. Flow State. Let's see who's on there. And Machine. Eeny meeny. Well, I'll tell you what. Machine has Rant, Rock E, and Mr. Pie, and Flow has Joe Cool, somebody with a picture of a weed plant, Denizen, some guy. He doesn't have the name showing. Some guy in a American flag mask. Anyway, I'll let y'all decide. Y'all know where the panel verse is. All right. I will see everyone tomorrow. Take care and have a good night. Bye.